I checked out the map room key. The night drew borders we could keep. I didn't check out the map room key because I'm sentimental about atlases. I checked it out because maps lie prettier than people do, and I wanted to see whether our particular lie still held its shape when the lines were backlit. The public library on Benton has a mezzanine nobody uses unless they've decided to take themselves seriously for an hour. The map room up there smells like linen, dust, and promises old surveyors made without asking the land. The key hangs behind the circulation desk on a brass hook that says staff, only in a font that pretends to be taller than it is. If you fix the jammed book return on a snow day, as I did last winter with 2 rubber bands and a stubborn definition of citizenship, the head librarian will remember your name and your quiet. Tonight, when I asked for the key, she breathed out through her nose, slid it across the counter, and said the only rule institutions whisper after midnight. 40 minutes, please. No trials after 2. She didn't smile. She looked tired in a way that suggested she loved what she guarded. At 11:41 p.m., my phone delivered the sentence my marriage has learned to say with reliable grammar. Loadout ran late. Quick debrief turned into a toast. Might crash at the office. Don't wait up. Elise doesn't lie. She arranges chaos until it stops alarming donors. She can talk a room into generosity and talk a truck into admitting what it's carrying. For most of this year, we've been exceptional at mercy and bad at appetite, which is a kind way of saying we've been excellent citizens to each other while forgetting why citizenship was invented. The man who made the ledger nervy wears a canvas tote with gaffer peeking out like a tongue and stands one respectful step from married women as if consent were a building code. His name is Rowan. He's the sort of operations lead events invent when gravity needs a translator. In daylight, I admire him. At midnight, my neck votes differently. I took the creaky elevator to the mezzanine and let the key find its lock. The map room woke up like a city that has decided to outlive its own weather. 2 green lamps blinked. The drafting tables remembered the last palms they hosted, and the big pull-out drawers stared at me with the patience of things that will outlast my genres of regret. A wall-sized relief of the county sat in pale wood under glass. The river cut a lazy grin across it, as if certain our decisions downstream would amuse it later. I laid 2 paper coffees on the edge of a table and waited the way men wait when they've decided not to invent versions of themselves that are easier to forgive. The mezzanine was so quiet I could hear the air conditioning insist, politely, on civilization. They came up together at 12:06, a pair of silhouettes in the doorway that could have meant ceremony or weather. Elise first, hair pinned in the shape competence requires, dress with a small tear near the hem that looked like honesty. Rowan behind her, sleeves shoved, tote at his hip, eyes doing the exact audit of exits that has kept him invited to dozens of lobbies and 0 mythologies. He saw me first, the skill of men who carry after midnight, and halted at the threshold with hands visible, like a priest of good ideas. Maps, Elise said, and it landed somewhere between compliment and accusation. That's very you. It's a room that understands borders, I said. Sit. Don't lie to me near latitudes. They make it look worse. Rowan glanced at the staff clock, then at the far wall, then at the floor tile that remembers every heel it has forgiven. Need me? He asked her, not me. I need you exactly there, she said, pointing to the footprint-shaped rug just inside the door. If I want less distance, I'll use nouns. He obeyed. Good men do. That's half of what keeps them dangerous and the other half of what makes them employable. Elise took the coffee and held it with both hands, as if the heat had jurisdiction. She looked at the large atlas on the nearest table and rested her palm on Africa like an apology spoken in the wrong language. "Say it," I told her, not cruel. "In an elevator," she said, because fate is lazy and insists on familiar staging. 2 weeks ago, between floors and nouns, I kissed him. It was quick and stupid and tasted like mint and rehearsal. He stepped back. He said my name like a lock. I hated him for being exactly who I hoped he was, and I hated myself for being relieved. "Do you want me to hit him?" I asked, and heard how even asking the question was a way of auditioning for a part I didn't want. "I want you to choose me," she said, "not rescue appetite." I reached and put 2 fingers on the inside of her wrist, daylight legal. Her pulse answered with a yes my mouth had forgotten it was allowed to request. I moved closer. The green lamp washed her collarbone with a color that forgives older mistakes first. I pressed my thumb into the small notch at the back of her neck I've kept for emergencies that ought to be pleasures and kissed her. Not apology, jurisdiction. She met me like a woman who had been a plan all day and wanted, briefly, unapologetically, to be a body that chose. We kept our clothes because libraries prefer precedent to folklore. My hand slid along her ribs to her waist and stopped where the elastic argues that laws exist for reasons beyond paperwork. She took my lower lip between her teeth, gentle and decisive, then laughed into my cheek with the laugh I am paid in, the one that has got me across bridges and through Januaries. "Do you still want to hit him?" she asked, not turning her head to look toward the door where Rowan stood like a paragraph break. "I want to thank him for stepping back," I said. "I want to owe him nothing else." "That's a budget," she said. "We can live on that." She sat on the edge of the drafting table as if height could negotiate with guilt. I pulled open a map drawer at random and found a city plan from 1948, streets named after wars and flowers, the river insisting no on 3 consecutive blocks. I spread it out. The linen made that delicious dry sigh that means something larger than you has allowed you to touch it. "Pick a street," I said. She ran a finger across the gridded idea of our city. "Here," she said, choosing a wide avenue that used to be a trolley line and now is the place where everyone pretends to meet by accident. "That's where we almost moved," I said. "Remember, the apartment with the window that wanted to be a door. The one with the landlord who said he was available and meant he was a problem," she said, and smiled like a woman who knows how to win a small war before lunch. We stood over the map, the way a pair of unqualified generals stand over other people's fates. The room's clock announced a minute as if minutes were not the kind of math that ruins desire. I turned the lamp down 1 click until the lines looked like veins. She told me the truth I didn't earn and she didn't owe. The kiss had been curiosity dressed as courage. The stopping had been the only part of the night she liked in daylight. Tonight's almost had felt like a door practicing her name. I told her about the motel parking lot where the key I never used warmed in my palm like a joke. The evening had planned, and the morning refused to tell. Rowan stayed at the rug, eyes on the brass plate of the door handle as if good hardware could remind him what his job was. "If I'm in the way," he said, voice careful, "say the word and I'm a hallway." "You're a hallway," I said. "At 9 you're a van." He nodded, grateful to have been turned into a function he understands. Elise looked down at the atlas spine and then back up at me. "Do something foolish," she said, "but survivable." I took the soft pencil from the drafting rail and made a dot on the old map where our apartment stands now. Then another dot for the community center where we spend Saturdays pretending competence is a religion. Then a third dot, small and stubborn, for the mezzanine above us. I drew lines between them, a ridiculous triangle that meant nothing and everything. Those are borders, she said. Those are the roads I want, I said. She lifted the hand with the pencil and guided it, drawing a fourth point where the river takes its long, arrogant bend. That's where I almost let the elevator decide for me, she said. We don't draw that one again. Agreed, I said and felt, for the first time in weeks, like my ribs were on the correct payroll. The building settled the way old buildings do when they approve of human weight. Wind argued briefly with a high window and let the latch win. We moved around the table until her hip brushed mine as if geography had suggested it. My mouth found the place below her ear where sentences are raised before they're sent into a room. She made a soft sound that could negotiate with gravity. I pressed my palm to her waist and felt the map paper shift under us like something that would forgive us if we kept the corners safe. We didn't perform for the furniture. We didn't try to be noble. We wrote our names inside a border only we would recognize in the morning and let the room notarize it with dust and mercy. At the door, Rowan cleared his throat in the polite key. "Loadin' at 9, he said. 4 backs, 0 speeches. "Thank you," I said. He heard everything I meant and nothing I couldn't afford to say. The clock gave us a last unkind minute. Elise slid off the table, smoothed her dress, and touched my wrist, daylight legal, in a way that rewrote the rest of the night. We returned the map to its drawer like contrition done correctly. I turned off the lamps and we stood in the velvet pause while the room remembered it belonged to the city, not us. Downstairs, the head librarian took back the key without ceremony. She looked at our faces like maps and decided we could be shelved for another day. Outside the building, the river had chosen midnight. We walked home along the path that refuses to believe in straight lines. She held my arm in the modest, expensive way of women who know how to survive gossip. At 9, the community center smelled like lemons spelling please. Rowan was already there, lifting tables with that modest inevitability that trains gravity to behave. I carried the other end and let my neck accept daylight as its jurisdiction. Elise moved through the room with a clipboard, and a mouth volunteers obey without hatting themselves. When she passed me, she pressed 2 fingers to my wrist again, public precise, and the morning decided to like us. During break, I set a coffee by Rowan's elbow. "Thanks for being the adult in the elevator," I said. "Thanks for showing up before the door closed," he answered, looking at the leg of a table as if it had asked the correct question. We didn't tell anyone about the map room. We didn't need to. We taped a photocopy of the old city plan, with our ridiculous triangle drawn in pencil, to the side of our fridge under the magnet shaped like the ridiculous boat we bought one summer we didn't ruin. Sometimes when the house auditions for courtroom, we walk to the library and sit on the mezzanine steps without going in. Sometimes she texts come and means stand beside me while I bend a room into competence and beauty. Sometimes I text come and mean watch me be a body before I become a plan. Sometimes we add a dot to the photocopy for the diner where the waitress knows when to bring pie without making it metaphor. We did not stop admiring other people's competence. We did stop confusing it with permission. Heat is a temperature, not a verdict. Maps are witnesses with good penmanship. We eat before we try to win. We sleep when the clock loses its manners. We put our hands on each other in daylight like the sun still issues licenses. And when the gossip part of the city asks whether we have anything to add, we say this. We borrowed a room that believes in borders, drew lines around what matters, and left without stealing any names. No trials after 2. Choose before the elevator decides. And if you must mark the place where you almost made a mistake, do it in pencil on a photocopy and keep the original clean, so the city can go on pretending it knows where everything ends while you learn where you begin.